I think it's a lot like literature. When you want to understand a text, you have to empty yourself of the assumptions and all these filters that will lead you to one direction in order to understand the author's perspective. And so when we come and have conversations, we have to sort of like empty ourselves and be open to listen to the other opinion. Not necessarily that your opinion automatically becomes mine,
Yeah.
but I'm able to validate your opinion in the sense that I recognize that it is real and it is yours, instead of invalidating it and just putting my own assumptions on you and kind of like interpreting whatever you say from my own lens rather than from your own
From your own
lens.
lens. So would you say validating someone else's opinion is equivalent to understanding someone else's opinion?
Yeah, I would say that. I think like the term validation is something that different people define it differently. And a lot of times when you say validation, it can mean affirming your opinion, which I'm not necessarily affirming or agreeing. I'm just sort of like understanding where you're coming from. And I hear that it is your opinion. I'm validating the fact that it is yours, it is real, and that it exists, and that it's different from mine, but I still have that understanding. I don't necessarily agree with it or affirm it, but I just know that it's yours, and I'm okay with that.
You're okay with, yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people miss, especially when it comes to like, I mean, I don't want to go into politics, but especially when it comes to politics, especially here in the United States,
Yeah.
different ideology just crashes, and that clash of ideology results to the clash of relationship.
Yes. I
Like
mean,
I've heard stories of people divorcing because of different ideology. I mean, like we're different people.
yeah,
Right?
yeah. That's when we get down to the intricacy of free speech,
Yeah.
because everybody roots free speech. But when someone says something that offends you, it's so easy for you to get offended
Get
and want
offended,
to
yeah.
cancel them. But it's not that like whatever you say doesn't offend me. It does, but you have the right to say what it is that you're saying. And so I will validate what you're saying in the sense that it is yours, and in the sense that I understand, or I might not understand.
Yeah.
Like I might not understand your worldview because I have a different idea, but it doesn't mean that you're like I have to completely sort of like get so offended in the sense that I should take away your right to
You're
say
right
that
to
thing.
say that, yeah.
And like we have become so sensitive in the sense that you can't say something that offends me. Like I think Jordan Peterson said something that whenever you're critically thinking and you're having real conversation, you're risking offense. Like you're going to be offended, but you have to be a constructive individual in order to be able to take someone else's opinion without it hitting you personally,
Yeah.
because it's not always personal.
Yeah. And I think that's why I think he said something about like in order for you to critically think, you have to risk be offensive. Being offensive.
Yes, that's how he worded it.
Yeah. And I think me and Ben were like watching Cat Williams
Yeah.
and how he was like just saying outrageous stuff
yes.
outside on the pod. And I think this is what's interesting about the podcast, right? It's like people are now creating platforms within the podcast, right? That are allowing people to just speak about the most outrageous thoughts, because it's being censored. It's being like censored, like speech is being censored, and due to speech being censored, people are finding an alternative way in order for them to express that, and people are watching it,
Yeah.
which is interesting.
Yeah. I think it's like the most basic thing that we have become so offended by.
Yeah.
It's just speech. Like I think I can say whatever, from the most cruel thing. I have the right to say it, regardless of what it is. Of course, we can question the morality of it and the ethics behind it, but I think that's another question. Just my right to say that thing,
Yeah.
it should not be taken away from me.
Yeah. Yeah, like you're right. And also, but at what point do your right
Impede on another.
impede on another person?
Yeah.
Like, because understand speech, right? In the confine of speech, it shouldn't be limited, right? We shouldn't limit speech. But let's say, for example, we're in a big building, and someone say, "Shout fire, fire," and we all have to leave. And then there's someone who's like having, like let's say, there's someone who's injured on a leg, and because of that, they start running, panicking, and they fall down, right? And it causes massive injury, or it just caused massive injury. Let's say, would that person be in a right? And I mean, that's false information, but would that person be in a right for them to shout fire, even though it's free speech?
I mean, they would
Like,
be, like, given that circumstance, they would be in the wrong based on the consequences that it lead to. But I think with free speech, we also have to understand that we have a sense of responsibility. And when we take away responsibility from individuals, then we incentivize them to say whatever they want and whatever, regardless of how cruel it is, and like take away the consequences that it could possibly lead to. And so, like, when we have that aspect of whatever you say, you're accountable for what you say. You're accountable and you're responsible for what you say. I think on an individual level, when you have that understanding, it's good, because the extreme of free speech is I can say whatever I want. I can do whatever I want despite the morality or the ethics behind it, which is not necessarily right, because you can say something that is completely offensive and just inappropriate. And I think that there should be consequences for that. And the problem is with that aspect, even me saying that, is like, how do we differentiate, like how do we find like what is hate speech and what isn't?
yeah, I mean,